Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tell Your Bearden Story. My name is Victoria McCraven, and I'm the 27th Romare Bearden Graduate Museum Fellow at the St. Louis Art Museum. Founded in 1991, the fellowship was named for Romare Bearden. Since 2014, fellows have completed a residency at the Romare Bearden Foundation, and it would be my honor to be your moderator tonight. Before we get started, in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. So you can put any questions that you have there. We actually have one question already. And at the end of tonight's program, we'll have the opportunity for a quick Q&A. So I'll have a chance to answer those questions. And a thank you from the Romare Bearden Foundation co-directors, Joanne Bryant-Reed and Deirdre Harris-Kelly, for attending tonight's event. The Romare Bearden Foundation is a nonprofit organization founded by the artist's wife, Nanette Bearden, and is one of the oldest of its kind established for an African-American visual artist. The foundation promotes Bearden's legacy by serving as a catalyst to encourage creative expression and innovation, high-quality exhibitions, scholarly publications and forums, as well as opportunities for artists to develop their craft. For 30 years, its mission has been to preserve and perpetuate the artist's rich legacy for future generations. The foundation is involved in a number of exciting projects and is just entered into a partnership with the Wildenstein Plattner Institute to produce and publish the Romare Bearden digital catalog Resonate Online. The project has just begun to assess the wealth of materials that will make the publication an invaluable online resource for scholars, students, and fans of the artist's work. We'll have a link to information at the end of the session. And for tonight's main event, Tell Your Bearden Story, which is intended to feed the Foundation's oral history project. The interview format aims to capture the real encounter of Bearden's friends and family and to share it with the Foundation's audiences. These firsthand accounts illuminate new perspectives and round out what scholars and researchers often miss about histories. For today's program, we are joined by collector and author Patrick Diamond and the co-director of the Romare Bearden Foundation, Deirdre Harris-Kelly, for an interview about Patrick's new book, The Incredible Joy of Collecting African-American Art, My Journey from Frogtown, South Carolina to the National Gallery. Patrick Diamond lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. He has held management positions with the North Carolina National Bank, Duke Energy Commission, and the City of Chicago. He earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees at Boston University. While at BU, Diamond was a 3-year starter on the football team and set the school's all-time rushing record. He has served on boards of directors and advisory committees at the Art Institute Chicago, Southside Community Arts Center, Rayonota House Museum, Winston-Salem Arts Council, Mint Museum of Art, McCall Center for Arts and Innovation, Greater Charlotte Cultural Trust, Arts North Carolina, and Charlotte's Arts Empowerment Project. Artwork from Patrick and his wife Judy's collection have been on exhibition in more than 20 museums, university galleries, and art centers throughout the country, including the Art Institute of Chicago, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art, the Black Academy of Arts and Letters, the American Jazz Museum, the Dallas Museum of Art, the Cincinnati University DAAP Galleries, and the National Gallery of Art. We are so excited to have Patrick with us here today. Deirdre Harris-Kelly is currently co-director of the Romare Bearden Foundation, managing exhibitions, publications, educational and celebratory programs around life and art of Romare Bearden. Harris-Kelly earned an MFA from the University of Michigan, and she currently teaches as a seminar course at Barnard College. She has taught studio art at New York University and Parsons School of Design studio program, as well as conducted professional development workshops and lectures on art. She was a member of the curatorial team of jazz at Lincoln Center from 2009 to 2012 and is the author of Revisiting Romare Bearden's Art of Improvisation, published in Uptown Conversation, The New Jazz Studies from Columbia University Press. Harris Kelly own artwork has been published and recently shown in the solo exhibition at Newhouse Center for Contemporary Arts, Snug Harbor, and Staten Island. Please welcome Deirdre and Patrick.
Welcome. Hello. Thank you, Victoria, for that wonderful introduction and for stepping up to organize this event for us, to organize and moderate this event. You're doing a wonderful job. We really appreciate your input here. And good evening to everyone else who is joining us, who signed on to spend this hour listening to us, and especially to our supporters and our regular followers who love to come to our events. We really, really appreciate it. This is for you. Patrick Diamond has been a champion of the foundation for a very long time. Joanne Bryant-Reed, the other co-director with me, we met Patrick maybe 10 years ago. So we're honored that he could be available to be the first in this online series. So welcome, Patrick.
Well, thank you, Deirdre.
Good, good. Patrick, so Victoria told us a little bit about your collection and how it's traveled, you and your wife Judy's collection. So aside from the work of Romare Bearden, because we'll get to him in a minute, tell us a little bit about the other artist works that make up your collection. And if you have any particular sort of collecting philosophy, like do you collect sculpture? I see you had a Richard Hunt in your lineup. So tell us a little bit more about how you choose the work that you collect.
Oh, thank you for your question, Deirdre. But before I respond, I want to thank you and Joanne and the foundation for this wonderful opportunity to be invited here this evening to share my book and to discuss the foundation and Romare Bearden. Again, I can't thank you and Joanne enough for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Judy and I have actually pieced together our collection over the 48 years of our marriage. And currently we have maybe 60 or so artists in the collection. Those that I would like to highlight in response to your question would be important artists like Elizabeth Catlett, Jacob Lawrence, David Driscoll, Henry Tanner, Sergeant Johnson, Huey Lee Smith, Radcliffe Bailey, and Jonathan Green. Again, we're just happy to have those artists, but other wonderful artists that have, contributed significantly to our cultural experience, again, throughout the marriage.
Right. And do you typically seek out, two-dimensional works, sculpture, or how do you decide what you're going to collect?
Yes, Deirdre, we have collected a wide range of art images. We have, paintings, works on paper, graphic images, we have sculpture pieces. Again, we have a wide range, and again, very little research has gone into the things that we've acquired over time. We just, see images and respond to those, and again, make purchasing decisions. Again, we've had the wonderful opportunity, and as we'll discuss later on, of actually meeting many of the artists that we've collected over time. Many of those artists have extended invitations to Judy and I to be a part of their circle of friends. And it's been, again, just an extraordinary, again, 48 year experience. These artists, their works, have enriched our lives, enriched our marriage in ways in which we could have never imagined.
Yes, it's a very unique journey, and not all collectors write about that, but you did in a very, very compelling way, sort of as a memoir. And I believe this is your first book, but what was the impetus for this publication?
Yeah, this is the very first book. It it took a while for me to compile it. The inspiration for the book was my grandmother. I inherited my love for art and Black culture from her, and because of the many ways that, again, the art has enriched our lives, I wanted to express my gratitude to my grandmother through this book. I had shared with her on a number of visits, different updates about the progress of the book, and she was very happy to receive those updates. Unfortunately, I was not able to complete it before she expired. So I missed that important deadline, but just very pleased that I was able to complete the book.
Right, right. Throughout the book, you described your grandmother as this driving force for your desire to collect art. Can you describe the first time you entered your grandmother's home, what that was like, and the similarities maybe with your home as an adult now?
Yes, I can, Deidre. I actually met my grandmother for the very first time when I was 5 years old. My stepfather and my mom drove me and my three siblings from Frogtown, South Carolina, over to Augusta, Georgia, to meet my stepfather's parents for the very first time. And I can remember it as though it was yesterday. She embraced me and my siblings with the warmest embrace that I had ever experienced as a child. And shortly thereafter, she led us into her home, and I was just mesmerized, absolutely mesmerized. I was born into abject poverty. I didn't know it at the time, but mom struggled. Single mom struggled with four children, and again, so things were difficult, challenging. Um, and we lived in a very small, 2-bedroom cinder block apartment in Frogtown, and Frogtown is located, within Columbia, South Carolina, small all black enclave. But again, we made this trip to Augusta to meet Grandma. And again, from that very first embrace and then her leading us into her home, it was like a brand new experience for me, an absolutely brand new and rich experience. I had never seen artwork displayed in the manner in which Grandma displayed it throughout her home. There were framed black and white photographs of family, of church members, of church outings, of family celebrations. Again, it was just absolutely riveting, even to a young 5-year-old. We continued to walk to the back of the house. Grandma had 4 bedrooms. All of the bedrooms appeared to be fully outfitted with artwork. Once we got to the back end of the house, the living room and a very large den also had all sorts of artwork on the walls. Grandma had also outfitted the house with wonderful antique furniture. She, throughout her life in Augusta, she worked for a Jewish family as a domestic. The Jewish family also happened to own a used furniture and antique shop, and Grandma over time was able to outfit her home in, American antiques, in European antiques. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. I mean, Chippendale, Duncan Fife, you know, all sorts of European antiques, and they all came with fancy names. So again, Grandma's house was like a small museum for me. Especially given, again, my birth and upbringing in Frogtown. So
And
Grandma, again, she was the inspiration for the book.
it sounds like she was a real connoisseur, right? And she was selecting artworks, and they would be in frames and displayed. And would she map it out? Was it salon style? Was it over full, or was it very parse and very selective?
Uh, uh, Deirdre, Grandma had art displayed throughout the home in a very orderly sort of manner, but you could tell that there were special touches to the way in which she, placed the work. But key to outfitting her home the way she did, uh, Grandma was born onto a sharecropper's farm in Barnwell, South Carolina.
Mhm.
And she wanted to create, once she moved to Augusta, once she got established in this new job as a domestic, and once she and my granddad were able to save enough money to purchase their first home, she had a plan to create the most comfortable environment that she could. That included artwork. But the primary reason for that was living in the South in the 30s and 40s and 50s with the constant fear and degradation and humiliation of Jim Crow laws and that sort of thing.
Right.
Grandma intentionally created a comfortable environment which she hoped would keep her family close to home, if not in the house, as opposed to on the potentially dangerous streets of Augusta.
That's
So it was,
interesting.
again, an
Yeah.
intentional
Mhm.
effort on her part. And thank goodness she felt like art would contribute to the comfort that she wanted to create.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, well, I want to talk a little bit about what made you get from there to collecting the art of Romare Bearden. The cover, if we can go to the cover, it's Bearden Classic Work Come Sunday. And I wondered if your grandmother's influence, over, her home and the way that she kept her work and where she lived, um, was an influence to you in terms of Southern works. I mean, this is like a classic Southern work of Bearden's. You can almost feel the sort of rural Charlotte sun. You feel the warmth of a summer day. You have the classical art historical pose of the mother and child. And in the foreground, you have what may read as a grandmotherly like subject. I don't know if any of that plays into your reaction to Bearden's work and why you decided to collect him.
Yes, absolutely, Deirdre. Um, I was drawn to Bearden's work. I'm losing you. I was drawn to Bearden's work primarily because of, the Southern themes, the family images, the extraordinary humanity that he's able to depict in his work. Just resonated with me in a very deep and visceral way. Um, you know, some of the first images that I saw were some of the Southern images. And in many instances, for me, viewing Bearden was like looking into a mirror and seeing myself, seeing my family, just seeing, Black people. Again, I was born in South Carolina at a time, we had segregated schools, Black children couldn't go to the local museum, could not go to the local library to apply for library cards. Obviously, in the 1950s, Blacks couldn't vote. I mean, so it was a a very suffocating, kind of environment. But in looking at Bearden's work, it just made me feel good from my head to my toes in terms of how he depicts Black people. You know, Maya Angelou, in one of her books, she refers to artists and writers and poets and painters, as important contributors to Black people in terms of adding starch to our backbones so that we can stand erect. And,
Wow.
and that's sort of, again, being a native Southerner and having that early, experience, again, of Jim Crow and segregated everything. I was able to celebrate within Bearden's images, celebrate within the frames of his work, have conversations with lithographs, conversations with collages, conversations with much of his work. Again, Judy and I, when we started out, we never saw ourselves as collectors per se. We were just, again, purchasing work that we were drawn to. It just so happened that we in those early years, we met, or were introduced to, works by, Bearden and Benny
Well, the
Andrews.
first time you saw his work, was that the Brooklyn show in 1980? The Brooklyn
first,
Museum?
yes, the first Bearden exhibition we saw at the Brooklyn Museum of Art. We were actually living in Atlanta at the time, and we were visiting family for the Thanksgiving holiday. Judy saw an ad in one of the New York publications and told about the Bearden exhibition. We made plans to attend. In fact, the entire family, my sister and brother-in-law and their children, all were excited about it. And again, we just had an absolutely extraordinary family day at the museum. When we got into the exhibition area, however, I just began to have a relationship, a conversation with art in a manner in which I had never had before. Again, I had never seen myself so vividly in artwork. I had never seen my grandma, my grandfather, other relatives, other folks from Frogtown, and they were all there. And I, just said, who is this Romare Bearden? How is he able to, capture me and entice me the way that he's doing it? And again, so that's sort of, launched by strong interest and desire in Bearden's work, and then through wonderful, friendships, and through a mutual friend of ours, Deidre, B.E. Noel. She's a local art dealer here in Charlotte, and for years and years and years, she helped Judy and I to sort of, develop our eye for art. She was always helpful in terms of, reviewing, lists of artists that we were collecting at the time, and then maybe encouraging us to expand that. I'll never forget, Noel, refers to collecting as a magic carpet ride, right? And that has absolutely been the case for us. I mean, we have gotten on this carpet and had this extraordinary, incredible, 48-year experience. Again, meeting artists like Bearden, meeting Jacob Lawrence, befriending Elizabeth Catlett. Benny Andrews welcomed us into his home, in his studio. He was a dear friend up until he passed away.
Mhm.
And there's so many other artists where we've had personal relationships with them. So again, this has been, again, we didn't see ourselves as collectors, Deidre.
Right,
We
right.
were just, drawn to the works. We were, trying to duplicate to a certain extent what my experience had been, through the relationship with my grandmother. We were not hosting guests, inviting them in to see our collection. I mean, it was just for Judy and I. And when our son came along in 1979, we wanted him to grow up
Mhm.
around African American art. We wanted the best for him. We were, all prepared to give him the very best education that we could. And we knew that he would, in grade school and high school, he would be visiting museums and art centers with his school and with his class. We wanted him to be able to look at a Matisse image, look at a Picasso image and say, gee, those are nice, you
Yeah.
know. And we also have Bearden in our home, and I'm familiar with Bearden and Jacob Lawrence and Elizabeth Catlett. So again, that was sort of our family sort of focus of our collecting interest. And
But
again, then we, you
but
know,
before you go on, I just want to say though, you also were drawn to Bearden in your book. You talk about having a lot in common with him.
uh-huh.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by that? Is that just about, the Charlotte experience, or is it about um, other things in his work? What is it that makes, and how did you find out about sort of his personal narrative and how it related to yours?
Yes, thank you for that question, Deidre. As we mentioned earlier, Judy and I had the opportunity to meet Bearden in 1985. He was visiting Charlotte. He was represented by a local gallery, the Gerald Melber Gallery,
Hmm. Hmm.
and Bearden was in Charlotte for what would be his last show at the Melber Gallery. Um, Unfortunately, I hadn't done an awful lot of research on Bearden before we met, but that the special opportunity that we had to meet him forced me to, do a little digging up and research on him and his work. Um, and I learned that his family also decided to leave Charlotte in about 1914 because they couldn't bear the constant humiliation and degradation of the Jim Crow South. Again, as I mentioned earlier, my family left for the very same reason in 1959. As Bearden's family migrated to New York. My family migrated to New York also. I followed Bearden to Boston University. Bearden was enrolled at BU in the 1930s, and in addition to all of the art classes that he was taking, he also was a star pitcher on the baseball team.
Aha, that's
Uh,
okay.
when
An
I arrived,
athlete.
he was an extraordinary athlete, and as
Mhm.
you know, he was actually offered a professional contract to
Mhm.
play in the majors. Thank goodness, he decided to pursue his art instead. Um, Again, when I arrived at BU in 1968, the baseball diamond had been converted to the football stadium. So again, I played football at BU, in the same facility or converted facility that Bearden had. So again, I was chasing him. Again, yeah, in 1981, Judy and I visited the Brooklyn Museum and got immersed in Bearden's work. Uh, Very shortly after that, I mean, we were living in Atlanta at the time, you know, both of us felt a compelling urge to purchase an original Bearden. So we sought out Atlanta galleries, or we searched to find an Atlanta gallery that represented Bearden. And we were fortunate to find that Louisa McIntosh sold Beardens and or represented Bearden and sold his work. We made our very first visit to a commercial gallery, visited with Louisa, and again, had a wonderful engagement with her. She thought the world of Bearden, thought that he was America's greatest artist. And we wish we could have purchased everything that we saw, but because this was our first visit to a commercial gallery, we had no idea about the cost of original works of art, right? Had no clue. But Louisa was willing to work with us. You know, we saw, 30 or more images. We saw collages, we saw watercolor paintings, and we saw some wonderful jazz lithographs. We made the decision to buy one of the lithographs and have been very, very happy to have that
I think we saw that one pass. Was that the one that was included, the first slide?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe
we
could
also
go back to that one. It's called Brass Section. Go ahead, just while you're talking, maybe we can get back to that.
Maybe I'll wrap up this question with this comment, Deidre. In 1993, Judy and I celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, right? Mm-hmm. And we decided that we wanted to go to St. Martin. Mm-hmm. We wanted to visit Bearden's Gallery in St. Martin, and we wanted to see the extraordinary Caribbean seashore that he included in many of his works from his studio down in St. Martin. So again, from migrating out of the Carolinas to following each other on the athletic fields at Boston University, actually having the opportunity to meet Bearden. He encouraged us, when we met him and spent an hour alone with him.
Right, this was a chance meeting in the gallery, right? It wasn't a reception yet.
No, it wasn't a reception. It was a chance meeting. When Judy and I entered the gallery, Gerald Melberg and Bearden were the only folks in the gallery. Melberg introduced us to Bearden and mentioned to us that a local newspaper reporter was en route to do an article on Bearden. The good news and good luck for us was that the writer, the journalist, was more than an hour late. We had Bearden to ourselves. He gave us a guided tour, of the exhibition. He, talked about his technique. I couldn't follow all of it, but he was very detailed in his technique. He told us, how he and friends developed titles for certain images. Mm-hmm. Again, we just had a wonderful, wonderful hour-long conversation with him. Two things as the observer writer rushed through the door, again, an hour or so late. Bearden encouraged us to purchase his publication, Six Black Masters. And then he said, Patrick and Judy, I would like to encourage you to support Black artists as best you can.
Wow.
Didn't elaborate on that, but support Black artists as best you can. And again, so he, through that face-to-face meeting, has influenced us in tremendous ways, Deidre, and and again, has been a part of this incredible journey that that Judy and I have enjoyed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's talk a little bit about the special work in your collection, the special Bearden work, Girl in a Pond. You tell a wonderful story of this piece and how you acquired it and how it, took you as a collector and enthusiast on a journey. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I love this particular Bearden story. I mean, most Bearden collectors that I've met over the years, we all have one little special Bearden story that we like to tell, and this is mine. And I'll try to be brief. Um, this is, again, over time we've had more than 20 Bearden images. This is the only collage that we've had, right? Um, for years and years and years, we wanted to acquire a collage, but we just didn't have the resources to do it. We could never pull together the money necessary for it. But this collage was in the collection of a corporate CEO here in Charlotte, and he purchased this image from the Melbourne Gallery, I think shortly after it was created in 1972. This corporate executive expired sometime 1994, 1995, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um, the executor to his estate was shopping the collection of more than a dozen Bearden collages, many of them, some of the very large collages, some of the masterpieces that probably found their way into the National Gallery's major exhibition. Um, so again, more than a dozen images, including Girl in the Pond, were offered to one of Charlotte's major financial institutions. And all of the images were acquired by the bank with the exception of Girl in the Pond. I found out through a dear friend that the attorney handling the estate was shopping this collage, right? And I actually the attorney, I knew him. He and I had served on a local board together. So as soon as I received the notification from the gallery owner, I called him and made an appointment to see him. And within a day or so, I was able to get to his office, looked at the image. He says, Patrick, this is one of those Beardens that it doesn't jump out and grab you, but it's a nice piece. Um, almost as soon as I saw it, I said, Jeepers Creepers, I want this, I want this, I want this. But I also knew, Deidre, the approximate, value of the piece. And I knew what, some commercial galleries were charging for collages about this size, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I couldn't come real close to that number, right? And believe it or not, and I don't know whether it was because of I knew this wonderful attorney or what, or whether Romy was twisting his arms. He says to me, he said, Patrick, if you like this image, make me an offer. I was stunned. I mean, I had never, ever been in a situation where, someone might you know, raise that question in terms of an art
Mm-hmm.
acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, and I shared in the book, you know, I was running through my head. I said, you know, how much money, how much cash can I cobble together to make a decent offer so this guy knows that I'm just not trying to steal this piece, but I know I can't, come close to the real retail value. So anyway, I wrote a number down on a scratched piece of paper and I pressed it into his hands and I left his office. Right? 2 or 3 days.
Did you call Judy?
I didn't call Judy. I didn't call Judy because I knew that Judy would have said, we can't even consider this. But, I said, I got to figure out a way to cobble this money together. You know, the good news is I was able to do that. But 2 or 3 days later, I get a letter in the mail from the attorney, and he says, the committee has approved your offer.
Woo! Woo!
I just jumped up and clicked my heels, and then I sort of said, let me figure out how to find this money now, right? So that's how we acquired Girl in the Pond. And should I talk a little bit more about
you can just say that this is the piece that led, as in the title, from Frogtown, South Carolina to National Gallery. This is the piece that takes you there. Is that correct?
This is the piece that...
This was your lottery ticket.
This was the piece that was critical to my journey from Frogtown, South Carolina to the National Gallery. In about 2000, Judy and I moved to Chicago from Charlotte, and I was able to sort of get connected with the Art Institute, and one of their curators was a wonderful guy, Mark Pascal, and you had several meetings with him, and he, like most museum curators, was curious about the kinds of things that we collected. And I mentioned Bearden and Tanner and, Catlett and several other artists. And sure enough, maybe about a year and a half later, Ruth Fine from the National Gallery was visiting the Art Institute to examine their Bearden holdings in preparation for the National Gallery's traveling exhibition. She inquired of Mark if he knew of other people in Chicago that collected Bearden. And he said, well, this guy, Pat Diamond, who lives right down the road here, says that he collects Bearden. I haven't seen any, but he says he collects Bearden. He and his wife collect. Sure enough, Ruth gives me a call. She says, Patrick, I've gotten your name from the Art Institute. I'm here, examining works in the museum and with private collectors. I am curating an important Bearden exhibition for the National Gallery. Can I please stop by your apartment to take a look at, the Beardens that you have?
Wow.
Before she could get the request out, I grabbed the vacuum cleaner and got started cleaning things up. I got the bathroom cleaned up. And so in the Art Institute was maybe a 10-minute walk from our rental unit, right? So Ruth comes over and we spend maybe 2 hours together.
Wow.
He's examining the lithographs. We had a Bearden drawing, an ink drawing that was a part of the collection at the time. And then towards the end of this 2-hour session, she examined our collage very, 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 very closely, right? And so she leaves and she says, Patrick, I got to travel throughout the country to visit other collectors, and we'll be in touch with you, and we'll keep you posted in terms of the progress of the planned exhibition. So I stayed in contact with her. When I came across Bearden materials, I'd stick them in the mail to her at the National Gallery. She would, very quickly respond to me in a letter or email. So we formed this wonderful friendship as she, was pursuing this or building this exhibition over a 2-year period, Deidre. I was hoping with my fingers and toes crossed that she would consider Girl in the Pond, right? And there was one particular reason, and maybe I'll wrap up with this and not bore the audience much more. But this particular exhibition that the National Gallery was organizing, as you know, Deidre, it was the first one person exhibition of an African American artist's work in the 62-year history of the National Gallery.
Yeah. Historical, monumental. The guards were invested. Everyone was overjoyed. Yeah.
So again, I think that Romy had a lot to do with me acquiring that piece, and Romy had a lot to do with Ruth Fine requesting that for the show. And as you know, it made the inside back jacket of the
That's
catalog.
Right. What a thrill. What a thrill to see that. And to get a visit from Ruth Fine. She did a wonderful bang up job with that show. It is pivotal. It remains the, pivotal show now. And the catalog was just extraordinary.
A magic carpet ride. A magic carpet ride. Let me
All
tell
right.
you.
Well, I do have maybe one other question, and then I think, we'll go to the Q&A. But my question, just to sort of wrap it up, we've talked a lot about Bearden and these wonderful stories of how you've acquired work and how you've seen it. So I'm sure that there are, possibly plans. This is the question that everybody wants to ask. What are you going to do with your collection? Are you still collecting, or is it complete? Or is your son becoming a collector? What's going to happen with your work when? I don't know. I don't mean when you expire, that term you use, but when it is no longer in your home. Where will the work be?
A great question, Deidre. The answer is we don't know for sure. Our son has laid claim to, certain pieces, and we certainly plan to, allow him to have those. Several years ago, as we sort of were thinking about, what might happen to the collection or how we should manage the collection, going forward, I had a conversation with Vivian Hewitt.
Yes, collector.
I said, Vivian, Judy and I need some counsel as to, some advice, regarding how we might want to handle our collection. We were so impressed with the relationship that you established with Bank of America and sold off 58 images, to Bank of America. Unfortunately, Vivian and I, she was willing to advise me, but I didn't follow up soon enough to have that conversation. So, we have an exhibition coming up. One of our local colleges has requested an exhibition July through the end of the year. So we're really excited about that. We're always have been flattered when, colleges or museums request, exhibitions or individual pieces. So this is our Central Piedmont Community College that has requested, an exhibition. We're not sure how large the gallery space is that they're hoping to fill, but we're looking forward to helping them make those decisions. We have, one of our Catholic images has been requested recently by the Reynolda House Museum in Winston-Salem. So we'll continue to do, things like that. But we're not sure how. Our son Chad probably doesn't want all the things that we have. It would probably be a burden to him to, to deal with some of the things. I mean, some of the things that, some of the things in our collection, we're the only people in the world that would like them, right?
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
So, but are you continuing to collect?
Since Judy can't hear us, yes, I'm still collecting. Early on, all of our decisions were mutual decisions, right? But Romy and Benny Andrews and Catlett and Jacob Lawrence and Jonathan Green and artists, wonderful artists like them can make you compulsive about purchasing their work.
Yes.
And the great news for us was, both artists and commercial gallery owners, they would allow us to demonstrate our interest in a piece by making a solid down payment on the piece and then working out pay arrangements. We could have never acquired our collection that we have today if we were required to pay cash up front. No way, shape, form, or fashion. So again, it's Noel's magic carpet ride, that's been our experience.
Thank you, Patrick, so much for sharing these stories. This is so much fun. It's always, I could sit and talk with you for hours, as I have in the past, but thank you so much for sharing these stories. And of course, I want to also emphasize that many more stories and influences are in your book. And so we're going to bring Victoria back on now to take a couple of questions for us. But I just want to personally thank you for being here and sharing.
Well, thank you, Joanne, and the foundation for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Hi, Victoria.
Yes. Hi, and thank you, Patrick. I had a chance to read your book, and it was just really inspiring as a young person getting started in the arts to see your journey. And I guess it's never too young to start collecting then.
No.
So we have a couple questions in the Q&A box. And if anyone would like to add questions, go ahead and do that now. More question to Deirdre. I have 2 copies of Bearden's work from a Bearden art show at Westinghouse Electric in Pittsburgh, PA, around 1978 to 1980. What was Bearden's connection to Pittsburgh?
Wow, yeah, that's really good. As Patrick had mentioned, Bearden's family migrated to New York, but one of his grandmothers ended up in Pittsburgh. She remarried and moved to Pittsburgh. And so in between that time, he spent time in Pittsburgh off and on. He actually spent the 3rd grade in Pittsburgh and then came back after going to school in New York and coming back. He spent the last 2 years at Peabody High School in Pittsburgh. And so those were indelible memories, and it shows up in his profile series and many other Pittsburgh related works. He also tells a wonderful, great story in the biography by Myron Schwartzman. He tells the story of working in a steel mill for a summer, or trying to work in a steel mill in the summer because they can't quite find the job or the area he could work in. And when I read that, all I could think was, oh, thank goodness that he stuck with the art, right? Because he tells a funny story of, not quite getting the hang of working at the steel mill. But yeah, so those are his memories. And of course, if you think about the playwright August Wilson, who did a whole cycle of plays based on Pittsburgh, 2 of the plays titles were based on Bearden works. Piano Lesson, and he named the play Piano Lesson, and then Milhand's Lunch Bucket by Bearden was the inspiration for Joe Turner's Come and Gone. So he had a lot of ties in the Pittsburgh, in the piano lesson piece, it features Mary Lou Williams, who was a Pittsburgh composer. And so those are the many ways that he interacted in Pittsburgh, very dear to his heart.
Thank you. So we're running out of time. So our last question. Hi, why are only a few pieces of Bearden's work available in print form? I've seen several images online, but cannot locate them online in print form. I love his work.
Well, actually, when you think about it, he did about 100 images in print form. And we're talking about limited edition prints as opposed to posters. There's, lots of posters that are mass produced. But the limited edition prints, you can, if you look on the auctions, there's a very lively market, a secondary market for the prints. But, when Bearden decided to make limited editions, it was this idea that he wanted more people to be able to afford his work. So in the 70s and 80s, he was already at a high level. His work was selling for, huge amounts of money. And I think he wanted to be able to make several at a price point that more collectors, particularly collectors of color, could afford. So yes, so there's a lot of prints out there and you can find them. You can try Swan Auction House. I'm not, you didn't get that from me. But also you can you can contact the Gerald Melberg Gallery. They sell a lot of his prints and they are the experts right now on Romare Bearden's prints. And so you can go there. And of course you can always come to New York if you're here and go to the DC Moore Gallery, which represents Bearden for the foundation and the estate. And so, give us a note or a call and we'll set you in the right direction.
Great, thank you. So the first virtual program was brought to you by the Bearden Foundation as part of the Harlem Renaissance 100th celebration in partnership with the Harlem Cultural Collaborative and Harlem One Stop. And I want to make a special thank you as we end our program to Nadal Kanari, who has been behind the scenes helping with this entire program with all these beautiful images that you've seen here today. And if you're interested in purchasing Patrick's book, I have it here. It's really a great read. There's tips for young collectors in the back. Mm-hmm. And there should be a link to that. Right, we'll show on the screen right now, a link to how to purchase his book. And if you're interested in learning more about the Catalog Resonate project as well, from the Windenstein Plattner website, you could check that out as well. And this is our very first virtual interview that we've done now in this Zoom space. So if you've really enjoyed this program, the Bearden Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So, and if you really want to help continue to have these programs and experience these great evenings with us, please donate at www.beardenfoundation.org. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.